Okay, everyone, we are going to do chapter 17 in the body of Christopher Creed. Okay, let me just get set up here. This document camera is not the easiest thing to maneuver. 17. I tried to ignore everything and everyone in school the next morning, but I managed to catch an earful of a few things the first 3 periods. First, Bo had come to school. Second, Allie was walking around with him between first and second periods, talking to him in all the boons like it was nothing. And everybody was yakking about that, though I was pretending I didn't hear. After her blowout with Renee the night before, I decided she'd probably just reached her limit and didn't care anymore what anyone thought or said. I couldn't forget her looking so zombified as we walked back to my house from the Wawa. Third, I hear the cops are coming for Bo. Again. I got the word from Allie in a note she passed me during second period, who'd heard it from a couple of teachers proctoring near the bathroom when she took the hall pass. She didn't know what he had supposedly done now, or if the cops just wanted to question him. I prayed Renee hadn't blabbed that thing about Chief Bowen and Mrs. McDermott around her house and set her dad looking for revenge. I also hoped that computer disk was still lying dormant and no wide-awake cop had decided to stick it in a hard drive. As the bell rang, Allie and I nearly flew out of class, then found Bo in the cafeteria, sitting down with Sean Mathers, where they usually sat. He shrugged like it was no big deal. Look, whatever Chief Bowen or Mrs. Creed are up to now, I made up my mind. I ain't running and hiding from that snake of a woman, and I ain't afraid of no Renee Bowen, queen of the mouth patrol. He laughed. Hey, I've been arrested before. Besides, this time I got your old lady. She'll keep me out of the can, whatever it is. I was scared he thought my mom was God or something. I'd heard enough talk about my mom's work, and I wasn't sure she could keep Bo out of juvenile if Chief Bowen wanted him there. I plopped into a chair beside Sean Mathers without really thinking, and Allie plopped down on Bo's lap. She was sitting on the edge of his leg, trying to look nonchalant, but I could see she was pretty pleased with herself. Sean said, Hey, anybody want half an egg salad? Damn, I hate when my mom makes me egg salad. So what's your mother doing making your lunch? Bo snapped at him. You ought to be making your own lunch. How old are you anyway? 15, Mathers shrugged. Think I bother my mom to make my lunch? Bo went on. I not only got to make my lunch, I got to make the little kids' lunches, or they don't eat. So what do you want, a medal? Mathers asked him. My mom likes making my lunch. Give half to Adams. He's losing weight. Bo held on to Allie with one arm while reaching over for half of Mathers' egg salad and then dumping it in front of me. Eat that sandwich, Adams. You look like shit. He thinks he's everyone's mother, Sean nudged me, like it was some big secret. I watched him, feeling surprised at how quiet his voice was. I had never heard Mathers' voice before. He had those fierce eyebrows and that full face of zits. I always thought if I heard his voice it would sound like a barking dog or something. He had almost a sweet voice, like a little kid's. He sounded a little slow, maybe, but definitely not scary or loud. My eyes moved off him and looked around the cafeteria. I caught at least 20 sets of eyes on me and probably 50 on Allie. I picked up the sandwich and said thanks and took a major, dramatic bite out of it. And don't be leaving no crust, Bo went on. Yo, Mathers, give him one of them tasty cakes. They got eggs and milk in them? Mathers grabbed his lunch bag. What am I, the good fairy give it all away? Bo reached around Allie and snapped the bag from him. Yeah, my mom works and she expects him to buy the shit around here and actually eat it. Your mom wouldn't know no job if she fell over it. Now give him one, fool. Where's your lunch? Mathers asked Bo, dropping a chocolate tasty cake in front of me. I slept in the woods last night, he shrugged like it was nothing. Think my old lady missed me? Not until she had to start making lunches, which she probably didn't do anyway. Hopefully Darla did, if she managed to find her way off Billy Everett's garage couch. You hungry, Allie? No, she said, but he was reaching in his pocket and pulling out $1. Go buy us french fries, huh? Maybe french fries won't kill us. Allie took the $1 and walked to the front of the cafeteria, and we watched her all the way. Everyone else was watching her too, just about. Shit, man, you're inspiring me, Mathers grinned at Bo. If this goes good for you, maybe I'll ask out Julie Overton. My eyes wandered towards some action at the door. Mrs. Creed was coming in, followed by Chief Bowen and the officer they called Tiny. Mr. Ames was with them, too, trying to grab Mrs. Creed's arm. She didn't seem to notice him. I couldn't remember the police showing up in our cafeteria, ever. Sometimes they came to the school, but always to the office. Bo laughed a little and said, "Ooh, here it comes, brothers and sisters. Now just be cool. They're going for the Academy Award." Sean said, "Bo, are they coming after you?" "None other." "What'd you do now?" "I don't know yet. Guess we're about to find out." I watched his eyes stick on this crowd like he was trying too hard to be fearless. But I know he was petrified under it all. He had to be. I was. He leaned back in his seat, so when Chief Bowen came up to him, he was looking at Bo upside down. "What am I arrested for now?" Bo asked. "You are wanted for questioning in the alleged murder of Christopher Creed." Chief Bowen's voice echoed through the air. "We have reason to believe you are involved, responsible, or had prior knowledge." Murder of Christopher Creed. Murder? My eyes shot up and caught 1,000 eyes staring at us in this suddenly quiet cafeteria. Some kids far away were standing on chairs. The word murder kept banging around through my head. Bo was laughing, but I could hear an edge in his voice. "Oh, I murdered him, okay?" He laughed. "And how did I do that?" "Get up, Richardson," Chief Bowen said. It didn't seem like he was going to elaborate right there. "Does this have to do with the computer disk?" Bo asked casually. Chief Bowen kind of froze for a second. I could tell by his expression the computer disk was big on his mind. "If this is about that computer disk, you're about to make a fool out of yourself." Bo jerked his eyes on me and then turned around in his seat. "Allie, where'd the computer disk come from?" Allie had come tiptoeing up from behind with the french fries. Her hand was shaking as she spat out the story about going to the library on Friday, moving it out of the library's files because they were curious about what Mr. Ames had said about a possible suicide. If the cops wanting Bo had nothing to do with the disc, they would have cut Allie off or asked what the hell disc was she talking about. Someone had actually discovered what was on it, I gathered. My mom had called it a sleeping dog. That could look very incriminating. I guessed her sleeping dog had woken up. Mrs. Creed had actually been quiet through Allie's 2-minute explanation. But then she came to life in her loud way. "No, no, no," she blasted, making Allie jump. "Christopher did not write that note. My son had a happy life. There is no reason why he would—" "Your son was a social retard," Bo blasted. "Ask Ames if you're too blind to see the truth." "Richardson, get up before I cuff you and drag you out of here," Chief Bowen said. Bo stood but kept up his tirade to Mrs. Creed. "You know your son was losing it, with a psycho for a mother, and you're a fine person to be calling anybody names." She turned to Chief Bowen, pointing a finger at Bo. "He already confessed to the phone call." That was the end of my silent act. I jumped up and grabbed Chief Bowen by the arm. "He didn't make the phone call. I made the phone call." Chief Bowen stared at me for a moment, and there was anger in his face. He looked angry that I was messing up this whole thing. He tore his eyes away to Allie, who, good as her word, was trying to tell him, "Chief Bowen, I made the phone call." Fortunately, she spoke too quietly, and I don't think he understood her. He was pushing past me, with Bo beside him, and I had to grab onto the table to keep from falling backward. He said over his shoulder, "There's already a confession on the books. If you'd care to argue with Mr. Richardson about it, you're welcome to do that later." I watched in stunned silence as he and Tiny started off with Bo. I could not believe I had just stood there and told every inch of the truth about the phone call. And Allie told the truth about the disc before that, and Bo was still walking off in between two cops, one cop who was a wife cheat, with a sociopathic mother bringing up the rear. I think I was still more scared than mad. I was scared that these allegedly respectable people let this thing get so bad. I guess I thought seeing a situation clearly was just part of being a grown-up. I let fly at the backs of their heads. "You stupid people, You know he didn't kill anybody. You just have to find some way to keep your own screwed up version of reality going. A hand slapped over my mouth, and I felt a massive arm pulling me backward. I watched Chief Bowen turn and give me some "don't tangle with me" stare. And it's good Mr. Ames had his hand over my mouth because I was running through every curse word I knew. Bo was laughing at the top of his lungs, though I couldn't figure out what was funny. Chief Bowen hollered to Mr. Ames, "Get him out of here." I saw Chief Bowen turn to Mrs. Creed and bark, "Sylvia, you are not invited." She stopped in her tracks, and that's all I remember until I was in Mr. Ames's office, and he was pushing me into a chair. I fell into it hard. I didn't know he had grabbed Allie, too, and he flung her by the arm, but not as hard. She dropped into a chair, and I could hear Mrs. Creed's hagging voice from somewhere nearby. It got drowned out by a little Mr. Ames's voice, which was right in my face. "If you want to win people over, you need to work on your tact. You're taking lessons from Bo Richardson. Going to lie for that boy, you too will suffer very, very serious consequences," Mrs. Creed's voice blasted. I turned to see Mr. Ames grab the door handle. She was standing in his doorway. I thought he was going to slam the door in her face. He got it about halfway shut, then stopped. They stared at each other. He looked like he couldn't take much more of her constant badgering, but it was his job to be polite to parents, and he was having a real inner battle here. She looked defiant, and my stomach was twisting. After a moment, he cleared his throat and said softly, "You may come in. I think Tori and Allie and I would like to have a talk with you. We want to tell you about Chris." Okay, everyone. That was chapter 17 from the body of Christopher Creed. Thanks for listening.